Last Friday afternoon, Justin Tipuric and Alun Wyn announced their retirements from international rugby, just 73 minutes apart. And I wanted to write something about what they meant as a Wales fan and as an Ospreys fan. Of course, if I'd gone to Squarespace, maybe I'd have had a beautiful website where I could just have started a new page, add the blog, written my thoughts, integrated some videos, some clips of them playing, maybe this photo, then put it up instantly to be shared with the world with easy social media integration. And alas, if you want to learn from my mistake, then please head to the link in the description and use the offer code SQUIDRUGBY to start making your beautiful website on Squarespace. You never know, maybe that's what Justin Tiperic's retired to spend more time doing. Making his own beautiful websites about his lovely blue hats. But since I didn't have a blog to post this on, here goes.
Faz said there's no tomorrow after today. There is. There's a tomorrow. There's one with this jersey, and it'll remain on you till you finish playing, until you die. From today. And there's a tomorrow without the jersey. We've got 80 minutes to choose which one we want. Let's go.
When Justin Tipuric first took the field for Wales against Argentina on August 20th, 2011, we couldn't possibly have known just how famous that Trabanos blue scrum cap would go on to be. A beacon lighting up international rugby pitches for more than a decade, a non-stop source of skills, frills and turnovers aplenty. And yet, the day Croatia's finest export since the Dalmatian won that first cap in 2011, Alun Wyn was playing his 52nd game for Wales. 3 test caps for the Lions already in the bag, having skippered Wales multiple times and been touted already on the rugby forums I frequented at the time as a teenager as arguably Wales's greatest ever second row. The years that followed didn't so much cement that into place as blow down the entire 15 and force them to rebuild it in Alun Wyn's image. To 3 whole generations now, Welsh rugby is Alun Wyn. And for over a decade now, the Ospreys have been Alun Wyn and Justin Tipuric, other players optional in a team that seemed to only exist to give those two something to do. This video is not going to be a technical analysis of what made either forward so exceptional, but rather a brief initial naked reflection on the careers of 2 of Wales's greatest ever rugby players, and 2 men that defined 2 institutions that mean a lot to me, both dropping out of sight on the same day.
Wel, y gweld bia'r gêm yn llwyr hyd yn hyn. O, pas hyfryd. A dyma Tipuric, cic a chwrs a deichadwyn fyw. O, gwych gan y blaen asgellwr. Dyna chi gais. Bydd unrhyw asgellwr y falch o hwnna. Justin Tipuric.
I remember fairly vividly being sat in my grandparents' living room, watching the Ospreys get smashed by Bath on S4C, but thinking, this young flanker Timpering on his first start looks really quite good. A few weeks later, he got another game, and he chipped one of the best defensive fullbacks in the sport at the time, and went on to score a really spectacular try. It was clear, almost instantly, that he was special. Justin Tipuric may be the first player as a teenager who just got into the game properly rather than only half watching rugby when my dad put it on, who only committed their eternal soul, for better or worse, for good or mostly evil, to the Ospreys earlier that year, that I championed all the way up from professional debut to test match Lion. Somewhere along that remarkable journey, for the run of my adolescence into early adulthood, he became my outright favourite player for quite a long time. Sam Warburton was up there, Adam Jones was an icon, but there was something that felt personal about Tipuric. He was my guy, who I'd watched climb the ranks and hyped every step of the way. I believe I'm right in saying I've watched every single professional match that Justin Tipuric has ever played. A solid 300 plus for the Ospreys, Lions, Barbarians, and of course Wales. And yet even, I think, for a neutral who first discovered him in 2013 when pulling off this kind of flary all-timer bullshit when the Warbrick combo really took off, few players ever made you feel as much, as often as he did. It could be a beautiful turnover on his own goal line, a searing break, a wonderfully timed pass, or this kind of next level magic resulting in a try that you will see again at the end of the year when I put together the moments of the year for this. Spoilers, this is on it. It's the extent that when I decided to start a silly little YouTube channel back in December 2017, it felt like a no-brainer that I pay tribute to the Trabanos blue hat. The Squid Rugby logo that sits below every single video on this channel, next to every tweet I send, on the thumbnail for every Rugby Onslaught article about how I didn't recycle all my plastics last month. The logo that's defined my life for the last 6 years exists because of how watching Justin Tiperic's ascent from kid in a blue hat to three-time Lion made me feel. This isn't a technical analysis, but that's just as well, because Tips has always been one of those players who it's more fun to just watch. The skill set, the flair, the unreal fitness and game intelligence that will never die. He had a hand in almost all of my favourite rugby moments as a non-neutral over the last 15 years. His man of the match performance against England to secure a Six Nations title will outlive everyone currently in Cymru. It was his turnover that won the Ospreys their last silverware, this Pro 12 league title, back 11 years ago. 1 point up, 2 minutes into overtime. He was a key cog in Wales' last few World Cups, impact off the bench against England in 2015 and a critical role in the 2019 semi-final run. This try at Twickenham was one of Wales' all-time greats, finished by a flanker who could do it all. And it flows all the way through to 2023. This year, his monumental performances against Montpellier and Leicester to secure the Ospreys' 2 biggest wins in the 11 years since that day in Dublin. And yet, Tiperic's endless legacy almost looks piddly when put next to Alun Wyn Jones. By the time he hit 50, Alun Wyn Jones might have been Wales' greatest ever second row, but now at 170 years of age, not just caps, it feels almost inarguable to say Alun Wyn Jones was Wales' greatest ever rugby player. The sport of rugby union football is uniquely interwoven into the modern history of Wales as a nation, and yet nobody has ever given, done or accomplished more for Cymru in its historic sport of choice than Alun Wyn Jones. Where I remember Tiperic's first game for the Ospreys, AWJ was playing for Wales before I was even watching properly. The team has changed around him repeatedly, the entire concrete of the game shifting fundamentally over his 17-year international career. 17-year international career. Yet there's never been a moment where Alun Wyn couldn't keep up. Shut up at the back. The mark of a properly great, capital G, great player for me has always been the ability to adapt your game to what's needed from the position now as the game starts to change and teams start to figure you out. And by that metric, AWJ is the greatest there has ever been. Everyone sees the old warhorse, but Alun Wyn has consistently evolved how he plays rugby. Early in his career, he was a purely technical second row, making endless tackles, smashing rucks, winning uber clean line-out ball. Over the next few years, he had the dynamism to his carrying and ability to hit angles and play the ball. His game shifted again after this trip on Dylan Hartley cost Wales the game at Twickenham. Discipline and knowing where the referee's line was became his bag. Alun Wyn wouldn't receive his next yellow card for another 12 years. A near flawless streak of discipline that somehow went hand in hand with a growing presence at the breakdown, never crossing the referee's invisible boundary. 4 years as a jackal threat gradually subsided to becoming an expert at slowing opposition ball down. Little nudges standing in the way of the odd hand or shoulder where it perhaps shouldn't be. His work on the floor was critical to the 2017 Lions, most of it going totally unrecognised. And this entire time, he developed a Nakarawa-like sex octopus offloading game as well, able to outstretch and pop the ball into beautiful places with incredible ease. When Wayne Pivac took over as Wales coach, remember him, he looked to build his system around deploying Alun Wyn Jones as an edge forward, a role typically given to a pacier back rower because he saw the handling, the offloading, the distribution he could bring as such a weapon worth exploiting, using. There was never a moment across his entire career where Alun Wyn Jones wasn't evolving, changing and challenging himself to become a newer, fresher, better player, to fit whatever the game and his team required right now. And there's rarely been a moment where he wasn't firing full force. It's been a popular, boring hot take to say this guy's past his best or not to his usual standards or whatever for a while now, but the facts of the matter are, nobody on any pitch he's ever taken to has ever worked harder than Alun Wyn Jones. Because more than just contribute to it, I don't think anybody has ever personified what Welsh rugby is and means more than Alun Wyn Jones, likely the hardest worker the sport has ever seen. Warren Gatland's old mantra was always that he wanted his team to be the best in the world at the things that require no talent. And that's been at the core of everything that's made Welsh rugby special down the years. Rugby in Wales was always the working man's game. It's a sport where effort is rewarded as much as skill. It's a game for those willing to be emotional whilst pushing their hardest. The tears and the anthem were always something that set Alun Wyn Jones apart. People criticised AWJ because other locks had flashier skills, instincts, whatever. But nobody across his entire 19-year career was ever better at the things that required no talent. As such, Alun Wyn Jones probably means more to Welsh rugby than any other individual player does to any single Tier 1 nation, with a possible barring of Sia bloody Khaleesi. He's a totem, an icon, a hero, and not in the way that it's easy to say as someone who deeply, deeply cares about Welsh rugby as a passion, as a lineage, as a history, and as an institution that represents a nation. Alun Wyn Jones is a hero. It would probably take a full half hour, it would take months of work to reflect properly on a 17-year career, to even scratch the surface on what he's meant to Wales, to talk about just what a player he's been, what a captain, and what a leader. He's provided a nation when they needed it most. The Blood Red 5 shirt will be worn 1,000 times more by 100 more players over many, many years. But to almost everybody in Wales, at least a little bit, that shirt will always belong to Alun Wyn Jones.